I stand frozen in the glass-walled boardroom as CEO Jonathan Blackstone screams at me in front of 12 major investors, calling me completely useless and dead weight after I question a critical flaw in his presentation numbers. Security escorts me out like a criminal while investors watch in stunned silence. 3 years of building this company's financial strategy, and this is how it ends. What Jonathan doesn't know is that the emergency clause I wrote into their biggest deal just became his worst nightmare. The humiliation burns through me as I sit in my car outside Meridian Technologies, hands trembling on the steering wheel. Just 2 hours ago, I was the chief financial officer of one of Denver's most promising software companies. Now I'm apparently a criminal being investigated for embezzlement. The irony would be laughable if it wasn't destroying my life. Let me back up. My name is Letitia Harrison, and until today I thought I was living the American dream. Harvard MBA, summa cum laude, recruited straight out of school by Jonathan Blackstone himself. He painted this picture of building something revolutionary together, changing how businesses manage their supply chains through artificial intelligence. I believed every word. For 2 years I poured my soul into Meridian. 60-hour weeks became 70, then 80. I restructured our entire financial framework, secured 3 rounds of funding, and helped grow our revenue from $800,000 to $47 million annually. Jonathan called me his right hand, his financial genius. Board meetings felt like victory celebrations. But 6 months ago, something shifted. Jonathan became secretive, dismissive. He'd make major financial decisions without consulting me, then get angry when I asked questions. The man who once praised my attention to detail suddenly acted annoyed by my thoroughness. The breaking point came 3 weeks ago when I was preparing our quarterly reports for the Velocity Core acquisition. $900 million for a company I'd helped build from nothing. It should have been the proudest moment of my career. Instead, it became my worst nightmare. I discovered discrepancies in our revenue reports. Not small errors, but massive inconsistencies. We were claiming $47 million in revenue from a client called Pinnacle Solutions. The problem: Pinnacle Solutions didn't exist. I traced the supposed contracts, called the listed phone numbers, even drove to their supposed headquarters. Empty building, disconnected phones, fake business registration. Jonathan was inflating our revenue by 30% to secure the Velocity Core deal. I approached him privately, professionally, gave him every opportunity to explain. Maybe there was something I didn't understand, some complex deal structure beyond my comprehension. I wanted to be wrong. His response: ice-cold dismissal. He told me to stay in my lane, focus on my numbers, and stop questioning his strategies. When I pressed further, explaining that this could destroy the company and land us all in federal prison, he got nasty. Started questioning my competence, my loyalty, my place in the company. But I couldn't let it go. Financial fraud isn't a small mistake you overlook. It's a cancer that destroys everything it touches. Investors, employees, clients, everyone gets hurt. I'd seen it before during my internship at a firm that collapsed after similar schemes. Good people lost their life savings because someone decided rules didn't apply to them. So today, in that boardroom full of potential investors, when Jonathan presented the fraudulent numbers as fact, I spoke up. Not dramatically, not accusingly. I simply asked about the Pinnacle Solutions revenue and requested clarification on the client verification process. Jonathan's face went purple. He screamed that I was undermining him, sabotaging the deal, proving myself incompetent and disloyal. Called me completely useless in front of 12 of Denver's most influential business leaders. Then he had security escort me out like I'd stolen office supplies. The investors looked shocked, embarrassed. These were serious people who'd built billion-dollar companies. They don't expect public meltdowns during professional presentations. I could see the doubt creeping into their faces as I was marched past the conference table. Now I'm sitting here wondering if my career is over. In today's connected business world, reputation is everything. If Jonathan successfully paints me as an incompetent troublemaker who's going to hire me, the Denver business community is tight-knit. Word spreads fast. My phone buzzes constantly. Text messages from colleagues asking if I'm okay, if the rumors are true. Sarah Chen, my assistant, sends worried messages. She's seen the internal memo Jonathan sent, claiming I was terminated for performance issues and possible financial misconduct. The same man who praised my work for 2 years is now publicly destroying my professional reputation. But there's something Jonathan doesn't realize. When I first discovered the fraud, I didn't just confront him. I documented everything. Every fake contract, every inflated number, every piece of evidence. I may be naive about corporate politics, but I'm not stupid about legal protection. More importantly, there's something else Jonathan doesn't know about the Velocity Core deal. Something I built into the contract structure that he never bothered to read carefully. An emergency termination clause that requires both CEO and CFO signatures to maintain deal validity. It was supposed to protect against hostile takeovers or sudden leadership changes that could destabilize negotiations. I wrote that clause. I made sure it was ironclad. The parking lot empties as Meridian employees head home, probably gossiping about my dramatic exit. A few people wave sympathetically through their car windows. These are good people who trusted Jonathan's leadership, who believed in our mission. They don't deserve to lose their jobs because their CEO is a fraud. My phone buzzes again. This time it's not a sympathy text. It's an email from Marcus Wright, our head of legal. Marcus has always been professional but distant. We worked together on contract negotiations but never developed a personal relationship. His message is short, cryptic. Emergency meeting, coffee shop on 5th Street. You need to see what I found. I stare at the message for a long moment. Marcus has been with Meridian since the beginning. He's seen every deal, every contract, every legal document. If he's reaching out secretly, something bigger is happening. As I drive toward downtown, a news alert pops up on my phone. My heart stops. Meridian Technologies CFO terminated amid internal investigation. The story is already public, probably leaked by Jonathan's PR team to control the narrative. But Marcus Wright doesn't send cryptic messages unless something is seriously wrong. And if there's one thing my Harvard education taught me, it's that the first person to tell their story usually controls how it's remembered. I have a feeling this story is just beginning. The coffee shop on 5th Street buzzes with typical Denver energy. Tech workers hunched over laptops, business meetings in hushed tones, the constant hiss of espresso machines. I spot Marcus Wright immediately. He's sitting in the back corner, baseball cap pulled low, looking more nervous than I've ever seen him. Marcus is usually the picture of corporate professionalism. Pressed suits, perfect posture, never a hair out of place. Today he looks like he hasn't slept. His hands shake slightly as he waves me over. "Letitia, thank God you came." His voice is barely above a whisper. "We need to talk, and we need to be very careful about it." I slide into the booth across from him, my heart pounding. "Marcus, what's going on? I got your message right after Jonathan had me escorted out like a criminal." He glances around the coffee shop, then pulls out a slim silver laptop. "What I'm about to show you is going to change everything. But first, I need you to know that I've been quietly investigating Jonathan for 3 months. My stomach drops. Investigating him for what? Financial fraud, corporate theft, potentially racketeering. Marcus opens the laptop and angles it toward me. "Remember Dr. Patricia Williams from the board? She came to me in September with concerns about irregular expense reports. Asked me to dig quietly just to make sure everything was legitimate." Dr. Patricia Williams, my former professor at Harvard, the woman who recommended me for this job in the first place. She sits on Meridian's board representing several pension funds that invested heavily in our company. If she suspected fraud, she'd have both the expertise and the legal obligation to investigate. Marcus clicks through a series of files. "What you discovered about Pinnacle Solutions is just the tip of the iceberg. Look at this." The screen shows a complex web of financial transfers. Dozens of shell companies with names like Strategic Consulting Group Innovation Partners, LLC Advanced Solutions Corp. Money flowing in elaborate circles, always ending up in accounts controlled by Jonathan or his immediate family. "He's been systematically stealing from the company for 3 years. Marcus continues, his voice tight with anger. Fake consulting contracts, inflated vendor payments, even charging his daughter's private school tuition and his wife's shopping trips to our operating expenses. I stare at the numbers, my business training automatically calculating the scope. How much? Near as I can tell, close to $14 million. The coffee shop noise fades to background hum. $14 million. Not accounting errors or aggressive revenue recognition. Outright theft. Marcus, why didn't Dr. Williams go to the FBI months ago? He leans closer. She wanted to, but there was a problem. Jonathan has connections in the Denver business community that run deep. His father-in-law sits on 3 bank boards. His golf buddy is a federal judge. His college roommate runs the biggest accounting firm in Colorado. Dr. Williams was afraid that without absolutely bulletproof evidence, Jonathan could make the investigation disappear and destroy anyone who tried to expose him. So what changed? Marcus smiles grimly. You did. When you questioned those numbers in front of investors today, you gave us the final piece we needed, a legitimate whistleblower with inside knowledge and clean hands, someone who could testify about discovering fraud through normal business operations. My phone buzzes with another news alert. I glance at it and feel sick. Meridian Technologies under investigation for financial irregularities. CFO Letitia Harrison suspected of embezzlement. He's framing me. The words come out flat, emotionless. I'm beyond anger now, moving into something colder and more focused. Jonathan is publicly accusing me of the crimes he committed. That's exactly what he's doing, and it gets worse. Marcus pulls up another screen. I've been monitoring his communications. He's planning to disappear after the Velocity Core deal closes, transfer the $900 million through a series of offshore accounts, then claim the company was defrauded by its CFO. By the time anyone figures out what really happened, he'll be living in a country with no extradition treaty. The scope of Jonathan's betrayal hits me like a physical blow. He's not just stealing money or inflating revenue. He's planning to destroy Meridian completely, leaving hundreds of employees without jobs and thousands of investors without savings, all while painting me as the criminal. There's something else, Marcus says quietly. Dr. Williams wants to meet with you tonight. She has a plan, but it requires someone with your specific knowledge of the financial systems. What kind of plan? The kind that puts Jonathan Blackstone in federal prison where he belongs. Before I can respond, Marcus's phone buzzes. He checks it, and his face goes pale. We have a problem. Dr. Williams just texted. Her brother-in-law is Detective Robert Martinez with Denver's white-collar crime unit. He's been helping us gather evidence unofficially, making sure everything would hold up in court. That sounds like good news. It would be, except Detective Martinez just called her. The FBI received an anonymous tip about financial irregularities at Meridian Technologies. They're opening a formal investigation, and guess whose name is at the top of their suspect list? My blood runs cold. Mine. Jonathan moved fast. He filed a complaint claiming you've been embezzling money through fake vendor accounts, provided what looks like evidence of transfers to accounts in your name. Obviously, it's all fabricated, but it's going to take time to prove that. I stare at the coffee cooling in my cup, my mind racing. Jonathan isn't just covering his tracks. He's actively destroying mine, creating a fake trail that leads investigators to me while he escapes with hundreds of millions of dollars. Marcus, I need you to be completely honest with me. How bad is this? Can he actually make these charges stick? Marcus closes the laptop and leans back. With his connections and fabricated evidence long enough to ruin your life, even if you're eventually cleared. Financial fraud investigations can take years. During that time, you'll be unemployable, your assets frozen, your reputation destroyed. The coffee shop suddenly feels suffocating. Everyone around us living normal lives, dealing with normal problems. They have no idea they're sitting next to someone whose entire existence is being systematically dismantled by a sociopath in a $1,000 suit. But here's what Jonathan doesn't know. Marcus continues, his voice gaining strength. Dr. Williams anticipated this. She's been working with Detective Martinez to build a counter case for months. Every piece of evidence we have is backed up in multiple locations. We've documented Jonathan's pattern of financial abuse, his threats against employees, his systematic theft. What do you need from me? First, we need you to stay strong. This is going to get worse before it gets better. Jonathan will try to break you psychologically, make you doubt yourself, isolate you from anyone who might help. I think about the news alerts, the public humiliation, the friends who are probably already distancing themselves. I think he's already started. Second, we need your detailed knowledge of the financial systems. You built most of our internal controls. You know where every transaction is recorded, how every account connects. That knowledge is the key to proving Jonathan's guilt and your innocence. Marcus pulls out a business card and slides it across the table. Dr. Williams wants to meet tonight at 8 o'clock, her home address. We're going to show you everything we've discovered and explain how we can use it to stop Jonathan before he destroys more lives. I pick up the card, running my thumb over the embossed address. 3 hours ago, I was a successful CFO preparing for the biggest deal of my career. Now I'm apparently part of an underground investigation into corporate fraud racing against time to prove my innocence while stopping a criminal mastermind. Marcus, can I ask you something? Why are you doing this? You could have stayed quiet, kept your job, avoided all this mess. He's quiet for a long moment, staring out the coffee shop window. I have a daughter. She's 15, wants to study business in college. Sometimes she asks me about my work, what it's like to help run a company. I want to be able to tell her that when I saw something wrong, I had the courage to make it right. As we prepare to leave, my phone buzzes with one more alert. This time it's a message from Sarah Chen. Letitia, I don't believe any of the rumors. Whatever you need, I'm here to help. Some of us still remember who you really are. Reading her words, I feel something shift inside me. Jonathan may have power and connections and carefully fabricated evidence, but he made one critical mistake. He underestimated these people who actually know me. Dr. Patricia Williams lives in Cherry Creek, one of Denver's most prestigious neighborhoods. Her Tudor-style home radiates the kind of quiet wealth that comes from decades of smart investments and ethical business practices. As I ring her doorbell, I realize I haven't seen my former professor since graduation 3 years ago. She opens the door and immediately pulls me into a maternal hug. Letitia, my dear girl, come in. We have work to do. Dr. Williams looks exactly as I remember. Silver hair pulled into an elegant chignon, sharp blue eyes that missed nothing, the kind of commanding presence that made her legendary in Harvard's business school. Her home office reflects her personality, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, awards from various business organizations, family photos with senators and Fortune 500 CEOs. Marcus is already there along with a man I don't recognize. Tall, weathered face, the alert posture of someone accustomed to evaluating threats. He steps forward with a firm handshake. Detective Robert Martinez, Denver PD, white-collar crimes. I've been working with your colleagues to build a case against Jonathan Blackstone. A case for what exactly? Dr. Williams gestures for us to sit around her conference table. Corporate theft, securities fraud, wire fraud, money laundering, possibly racketeering if we can prove he's part of a larger network. She opens a thick folder and spreads documents across the table. Bank records, email printouts, financial statements, even photographs. Robert and I have been building this for 3 months. What we're about to show you represents hundreds of hours of investigation. The evidence is overwhelming. Jonathan didn't just steal $14 million. He created an entire shadow financial system designed to funnel money from Meridian into accounts he controlled. Fake consulting agreements with shell companies, inflated contracts with vendors who kicked back payments, even elaborate travel expense schemes where he charged luxury vacations as business meetings. But here's the beautiful part, Detective Martinez says, pointing to a complex flowchart. Jonathan got sloppy. He thought he was too smart to get caught, so he didn't cover his tracks carefully. Every fake transaction leaves a paper trail. Every shell company is connected to his personal information. Every falsified invoice can be traced back to him. I study the documents, my trained eye catching patterns and connections. This is incredibly thorough, but if you have all this evidence, why haven't you arrested him already? Dr. Williams exchanges a look with Detective Martinez. Because we needed someone with intimate knowledge of Meridian's financial systems to testify about how the fraud was concealed. Someone with impeccable credentials who couldn't be dismissed as a disgruntled employee. You needed me. We needed you, she confirms. But more than that, we needed you to discover the fraud independently through normal business operations. It makes the case bulletproof. Marcus pulls out his laptop and opens a legal document. Which brings us to the really interesting part. Do you remember the emergency termination clause you wrote into the Velocity Core acquisition agreement? I'd almost forgotten about it, a standard protection I'd insisted on during contract negotiations. It requires both CEO and CFO signatures to maintain deal validity if there's a change in leadership structure. Exactly. And since Jonathan fired you illegally without following proper termination procedures for a whistleblower, that clause can be triggered. Detective Martinez leans forward. Explain the whistleblower protection. Federal law protects employees who report financial fraud from retaliation. Jonathan can't legally fire someone for questioning potentially illegal activity without conducting a proper investigation and following specific procedures, which he didn't do. Which means, Dr. Williams says with satisfaction that your termination was illegal. The leadership structure has been improperly altered, and the Velocity Core deal is now void unless Jonathan can prove legitimate cause for your firing. The implications hit me immediately. Without the Velocity Core deal, Jonathan can't get the $900 million he was planning to steal. And if he tries to proceed illegally, Velocity Core will discover the fraud during their legal review. Better than that, Marcus adds. I've been in contact with Velocity Corp's legal team. Turns out their head of acquisitions is someone you know. He pulls up an email and shows me the signature. Thomas Bradley, Senior Vice President of Corporate Acquisitions. I remember him clearly, my favorite professor from Harvard's Advanced Corporate Finance program. Brilliant, ethical, absolutely no tolerance for financial shenanigans. Professor Bradley is handling the Meridian acquisition. He's been suspicious of the deal for weeks, Dr. Williams explains. The financial projections seem too perfect, the revenue growth too consistent. He's been waiting for someone inside Meridian to come forward with concerns. My head spins as the strategy becomes clear. You want me to contact Professor Bradley directly, explain what I've discovered, provide evidence of the fraud. Not just explain, Detective Martinez corrects. We want you to go undercover. The room goes quiet. I stare at him, trying to process what he's suggesting. Undercover how? Tomorrow morning, you're going to call Jonathan Blackstone and ask for a meeting. You're going to tell him you want to apologize for questioning him publicly, that you realize you made a mistake and want to clear your name. Dr. Williams takes over. Jonathan's ego is his weakness. He believes he's outsmarted everyone, that he's untouchable. If you approach him with apparent humility, he'll gloat. He'll want to explain how clever he's been. While you're wearing a wire, Detective Martinez adds, getting him to confess on tape. The idea terrifies and exhilarates me simultaneously. What if he suspects something? What if he refuses to see me? He won't refuse, Marcus says confidently. I've worked with Jonathan for 3 years. He can't resist demonstrating his superiority over someone he's defeated, especially someone who used to challenge him. Dr. Williams pulls out another document. There's something else. We've discovered that Jonathan's fraud extends beyond Meridian. We think he's part of a larger network targeting tech companies for acquisition fraud. If we can get him on tape confessing to the Meridian scheme, it could expose a multi-million-dollar criminal enterprise. How many other companies? At least 4 that we can identify, probably more. Detective Martinez's expression is grim. These people find promising startups, infiltrate their leadership, inflate their value through fraud, then sell them to major corporations for hundreds of millions. The buyers discover the fraud after paying, but by then the criminals have disappeared with the money. I think about all the entrepreneurs I know in Denver's tech community. Brilliant, hardworking people building something meaningful. The idea that predators like Jonathan are systematically destroying their companies for personal profit makes me furious. What exactly do you need me to do? Dr. Williams smiles. Tomorrow morning you call Jonathan and request a meeting. You tell him you've had time to think, that you realize you overreacted, that you want to make things right. He'll agree because his ego won't let him pass up the opportunity to humiliate you further. During the meeting, you'll wear a digital recorder, Detective Martinez explains. Your job is to get him talking about the financial irregularities. Don't accuse him directly. Just ask questions about how certain transactions were structured, express confusion about the accounts you discovered. Jonathan won't be able to resist explaining how smart he's been, Marcus adds, especially if he thinks you're genuinely confused and apologetic. And if he confesses on tape, then we arrest him immediately, Detective Martinez says, along with several of his associates. This investigation has been building for months. We're ready to move as soon as we have his confession. I look around the table at these 3 people who've been working in secret to expose a massive fraud. Dr. Williams, my mentor, putting her reputation on the line. Detective Martinez pursuing justice despite political pressure. Marcus Wright risking his career to do what's right. What happens to me if this goes wrong? If Jonathan realizes what I'm doing? Dr. Williams reaches across the table and takes my hand. Letitia, I'm going to tell you something I probably should have said years ago. You have more integrity and courage than any student I've taught in 25 years at Harvard. Jonathan Blackstone is a criminal who's managed to fool people through charm and connections. But he's not smarter than you, and he's certainly not better than you. The truth always comes out eventually, Detective Martinez adds. Our job is to make sure it comes out before he destroys more lives. As we finalize the plan for tomorrow's meeting, my phone buzzes with a news alert. I glance at it and feel my stomach drop. FBI opens formal investigation into Meridian Technologies' financial irregularities. CEO Jonathan Blackstone requests privacy during difficult time. Jonathan is already controlling the narrative, painting himself as the victim of an employee's financial crimes. But tomorrow, if everything goes according to plan, the world will learn who the real criminal is. Looking around Dr. Williams's office at the evidence spread across her conference table, I realize something important. Jonathan may have money and connections and carefully fabricated lies, but we have something more powerful. We have the truth. The next morning, I sit in my apartment staring at my phone for 20 minutes before finding the courage to dial Jonathan's number. My hands shake as I rehearse the words Dr. Williams helped me practice last night. Humble, apologetic, desperate to clear my name. Everything my real personality isn't feeling right now. Jonathan answers on the second ring, his voice dripping with false concern. Letitia, I heard about the FBI investigation. Such a terrible situation. I hope you can get it sorted out. The hypocrisy is breathtaking. He's the one who triggered the investigation by filing false complaints against me. Jonathan, that's actually why I'm calling. I think I made a serious mistake yesterday questioning you in front of the investors. I was stressed and confused, and I let my emotions override my professional judgment. Oh, my dear girl. His tone shifts to patronizing sympathy. I understand completely. The pressure of a major acquisition can make people react irrationally. I don't hold it against you. I force humility into my voice. I was hoping we could meet this morning. I want to apologize properly and see if there's any way I can help clear up the confusion about the financial reports. Maybe there's something I misunderstood about the Pinnacle Solutions revenue. There's a pause. I can practically hear him savoring the moment. Of course we can meet. In fact, I think it would be good for both of us to clear the air. How about 10:30 in my office? That would be perfect. Thank you for being so understanding. Letitia, despite what happened yesterday, I still care about your career. We'll figure this out together. The line goes dead and I immediately call Dr. Williams. He agreed to meet, 10:30 in his office. Excellent. Detective Martinez is on his way to fit you with the recording equipment. Remember, your goal isn't to accuse him of anything. Just act confused about the financial discrepancies and let his ego do the rest. An hour later, Detective Martinez sits in my kitchen testing a tiny digital recorder that clips inside my jacket. The device is smaller than a button, virtually undetectable. The recording quality is excellent, and it has a 6-hour battery life, he explains. Just make sure to speak clearly and try to get him to be specific about dates, amounts, account numbers. The more detail he provides, the stronger our case becomes. I practice natural conversation while wearing the device. It feels surreal, like I'm preparing for a performance that could determine my entire future. Are you nervous? Detective Martinez asks. Terrified, but also angry. Jonathan destroyed my reputation in front of the entire Denver business community. He's planning to steal $900 million and blame it on me. I want him to pay for what he's done. Good. Use that anger to stay focused. Remember, this isn't just about clearing your name. It's about stopping a criminal before he destroys more lives. The drive to Meridian Technologies feels like traveling to a different universe. 48 hours ago, this building represented my professional home, my proudest achievement. Now it feels like enemy territory. Jonathan's executive assistant, Kelly, greets me with obvious discomfort. She's heard the rumors, seen the news reports. In her mind, I'm probably a criminal returning to the scene of my crimes. Mr. Blackstone is waiting for you in his office, she says without making eye contact. Jonathan's corner office overlooks downtown Denver, floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing the Rocky Mountains in the distance. He stands when I enter, arms spread in a theatrical gesture of welcome. Letitia, come in, come in. Can Kelly get you anything? Coffee, water? He looks exactly as I remember. Perfectly styled silver hair, expensive suit, practiced smile that never reaches his eyes. But there's something different today. A smugness, a barely contained glee. He thinks he's won completely. Just water would be great, thank you. Jonathan settles behind his massive mahogany desk, fingers steepled like he's holding court. Now then, let's talk about this unfortunate situation. I want you to know that I don't blame you personally for what happened yesterday. The stress of a major acquisition affects people differently. I lean forward, projecting earnest confusion. Jonathan, I've been up all night thinking about the Pinnacle Solutions revenue. I must have made an error in my research. Could you walk me through how that contract was structured? I want to understand where I went wrong. His smile widens. This is exactly what his ego craves. The opportunity to demonstrate superior knowledge to someone who challenged him. Of course, my dear. It's actually quite sophisticated, probably too complex for traditional CFO analysis. He pulls out a file and opens it on his desk. Pinnacle Solutions operates through a series of subsidiary relationships. The revenue flows through multiple entities before appearing on our books. Multiple entities. Strategic partnerships. Very common in our industry. The client work is performed by Pinnacle's primary contractor, but the payments are processed through their parent company's financial services division. I nod, as if this makes perfect sense while the recorder captures every word. That's brilliant. I obviously didn't understand the complexity of the relationship. Could you explain how the payment processing works? Jonathan leans back in his chair, warming to his subject. It's actually something I pioneered during my previous company. You create a network of related businesses that can shift revenue timing to optimize financial reporting. Perfectly legal, just sophisticated. So the $47 million from Pinnacle represents work performed over multiple quarters, but reported in this period for strategic reasons. Exactly. He's practically glowing with self-satisfaction. Though I have to admit it's not just timing optimization. We've also been able to enhance our revenue recognition through what you might call creative accounting practices. My heart pounds, but I keep my expression neutral. Creative accounting practices. Well, let's just say that when you're dealing with multiple subsidiary relationships, there's significant flexibility in how transactions are categorized and reported. He leans forward conspiratorially. Between you and me, the Velocity Core acquisition creates opportunities that someone with traditional financial training might not fully appreciate. What kind of opportunities? Jonathan stands and walks to his window, hands clasped behind his back, like a general surveying his domain. Velocity Core is paying $900 million for a company they believe is worth that amount based on our financial reports. But the beauty of acquisition deals is that once the money changes hands, the buyer assumes responsibility for verifying historical accuracy. I feel sick as I understand what he's implying. You mean they'll discover the revenue irregularities after paying us? They'll discover that some of our historical revenue was optimistically reported. By then, of course, the sale will be complete, and the money distributed to shareholders. He turns back to me with a shark-like grin. Not illegal, just aggressive business practices. The recorder is capturing his confession to securities fraud in real time. But I need more specific details. Jonathan, this is incredibly sophisticated. How do you manage the complexity of tracking revenue across multiple subsidiary relationships? Trade secrets, my dear. Though I will say that having control over the accounting systems makes things much easier. When you design the financial infrastructure, you can build in certain flexibilities that traditional auditors might not notice. You built flexibility into our accounting systems. Let's just say that the difference between aggressive revenue recognition and fraudulent reporting often comes down to documentation and timing. With the right systems design, you can ensure that everything looks completely legitimate to external reviewers. He's not just confessing to fraud, he's bragging about it. What happens to the employees after Velocity Core discovers the revenue issues? Jonathan shrugs casually. That's not really my concern. I'll have fulfilled my obligations as CEO by delivering the acquisition. What Velocity Core does with their purchase is their business. But if they discover problems with our financial reporting, won't they investigate how it happened? They'll investigate, of course. But by then, I'll be focused on new opportunities, probably consulting for other companies looking to optimize their acquisition value. His smile becomes predatory. There's a lot of money to be made helping businesses present their best possible financial picture. I realize with horror that Jonathan isn't just planning to steal from Meridian. He's planning to make a career out of defrauding companies and their buyers. Jonathan, can I ask you something personal yesterday when you had me escorted out? It seemed so sudden. Had you been planning to terminate me for a while? His expression hardens slightly. Letitia, I'll be honest with you. Your questioning of our financial practices had become problematic. Not because you were wrong, but because you were right about things you shouldn't have been investigating. What do you mean? I mean that a good CFO focuses on optimizing financial performance, not auditing every transaction for perfect compliance. You were becoming a liability to our growth strategy. So you decided to frame me for embezzlement. The words slip out before I can stop them. Too direct, too accusatory. Jonathan's demeanor shifts immediately. Frame you. His voice becomes cold, calculating. Letitia, I think there's been a misunderstanding about why you're here. My blood freezes. What kind of misunderstanding? Jonathan walks to his desk and picks up a folder. You see, I know exactly why you requested this meeting, and I know exactly what you've been doing since yesterday afternoon. He opens the folder and slides a photograph across his desk. It shows me entering Dr. Williams's house last night, clearly taken with a telephoto lens. I also know about your meeting with Marcus Wright yesterday, your conversations with Detective Martinez, and your plan to record our conversation this morning. The room spins around me. Jonathan has been watching us the entire time. Surprised you shouldn't be. When you're managing complex financial strategies, you learn to monitor potential threats carefully. He sits back down completely calm. Did you really think you could outsmart me with such an amateur operation? I try to maintain composure, but my voice comes out strained. I don't know what you're talking about. Of course you don't. Jonathan presses a button on his phone. Kelly, could you ask our head of security to join us? And please call Detective Martinez and let him know that his investigation has been compromised. As we wait, Jonathan studies me like a specimen under a microscope. You know what your problem is, Letitia. You think being right makes you smart, but being right without power just makes you dangerous to people who actually understand how the world works. The door opens, and two large men in security uniforms enter, along with someone I don't recognize. Expensive suit, predatory smile, the cold confidence of someone accustomed to making problems disappear. Letitia Harrison, Jonathan says pleasantly. Meet my attorney, Richard Crane. He specializes in corporate crisis management and employee liability issues. Richard Crane sits down without being invited, pulling out a legal document. Ms. Harrison, my client has evidence that you've been engaged in industrial espionage conspiracy to commit fraud and attempting to manipulate federal investigators with false information. That's not true. Whether it's true or not is irrelevant, Crane continues. What matters is that Mr. Blackstone has documented evidence of your activities, recorded conversations with your co-conspirators, and testimony from witnesses who can verify your attempts to fabricate evidence. Jonathan leans back in his chair, savoring his victory. You see, Letitia, I've been planning this conversation for weeks. Every move you've made, every person you've contacted, every piece of evidence you think you've discovered was carefully orchestrated to entrap you. The full scope of his manipulation becomes clear. He didn't just anticipate our investigation, he orchestrated it. The beautiful part, Jonathan continues, is that your attempts to frame me for financial fraud will actually provide the perfect cover story for my legitimate business activities. When the FBI investigates your false accusations, they'll discover that you fabricated evidence and manipulated witnesses. Meanwhile, Crane adds, Mr. Blackstone will appear to be the victim of a sophisticated embezzlement scheme orchestrated by his former CFO. Very tragic, very believable. I sit in stunned silence as Jonathan explains how he's been manipulating everyone involved in our investigation. The fake documents Marcus discovered were planted evidence designed to make us think we were uncovering fraud. The shell companies and suspicious transactions were deliberately obvious, meant to be discovered by anyone investigating the financial records. But the real masterstroke, Jonathan says with obvious pride, is that your recording device is going to provide the final piece of evidence against you. What do you mean? I mean that this conversation is being recorded from multiple angles, and the edited version will show you attempting to blackmail me with fabricated evidence of financial fraud. It will be the perfect proof of your criminal intent. Jonathan stands and walks around his desk, stopping directly in front of me. You came here thinking you were so clever wearing a wire to record my confession, but you've actually just provided the final evidence needed to destroy your credibility and send you to federal prison. The FBI will see through your lies. The FBI will see exactly what I want them to see. Edited recordings, fabricated documents, and testimony from credible witnesses about your attempts to manipulate evidence. His smile becomes genuinely cruel. By the time I'm finished, you'll be lucky to avoid 20 years in federal prison. As security moves to escort me from the building, I realize that Jonathan hasn't just outmaneuvered us. He's turned our entire investigation into a weapon against ourselves. But there's one thing he doesn't know, something that's about to turn his moment of triumph into the beginning of his downfall. The recording device Detective Martinez gave me isn't just capturing audio. It's been broadcasting everything live to Dr. Williams Marcus Wright and a team of federal agents who have been listening to every word of his confession. Jonathan Blackstone just confessed to multiple federal crimes while simultaneously admitting to framing me for those same crimes. And he has no idea that his own arrogance has just destroyed him completely. As Jonathan's security team moves to escort me from his office, the building's fire alarm suddenly begins blaring. Red lights flash in the hallways, and an automated voice announces, "This is not a drill. All personnel must evacuate immediately." Jonathan looks confused. What's going on? We don't have any fire drills scheduled today. Through his office windows, I can see unmarked black SUVs pulling into the parking lot. Men and women in FBI windbreakers pour out, some heading for the building entrances, while others position themselves around the perimeter. Jonathan's phone rings. He answers with growing alarm. What do you mean, federal agents? How many? His face goes pale. They have warrants for what? The fire alarm stops, replaced by a new announcement. This is the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The building is now under federal jurisdiction. All occupants must remain in their current locations. Jonathan stares at me with dawning horror. This was all a setup. Actually, Jonathan, this was all your setup. I just helped you complete it. The office door opens and Detective Martinez enters with 2 FBI agents. Behind them, I see Dr. Williams and Marcus Wright. Jonathan Blackstone, Detective Martinez announces, "You're under arrest for securities fraud, wire fraud, money laundering conspiracy, and obstruction of justice." This is impossible. I have recordings of her trying to blackmail me. I have evidence that she fabricated everything. Agent Sarah Chen steps forward. Mr. Blackstone, we've been monitoring this entire conversation through Ms. Harrison's recording device. We heard your detailed confession to financial fraud, your admission to framing Ms. Harrison, and your plans to steal $900 million from Velocity Corp. You also confessed to running a multi-company acquisition fraud scheme, adds Agent Martinez. We've been investigating your network for 8 months. Today's recording provided the final evidence we needed. Jonathan's attorney, Richard Crane, tries to intervene. My client was clearly entrapped. This entire conversation was manipulated to make him appear guilty. Dr. Williams speaks up from the doorway. Mr. Crane, your client spent 30 minutes detailing his criminal activities with no prompting from Ms. Harrison. He confessed to securities fraud, admitted to framing an innocent employee, and described his plans for future criminal enterprises. There's no entrapment here, just a criminal's ego destroying his own defense. As FBI agents place Jonathan in handcuffs, he turns to me with pure hatred. You have no idea what you've done. I have connections that will make your life a living hell. This isn't over. Actually, it is over, Agent Chen responds. Your connections can't help you when you've been recorded confessing to federal crimes in front of multiple witnesses. Marcus Wright steps forward with his laptop. Agent Chen, I have the complete financial record showing every fraudulent transaction, every fake company, and every stolen dollar. 3 years of evidence, all documented and verified. How much total theft are we looking at? Based on our analysis, approximately $47 million from Meridian Technologies alone. But if the multi-company scheme is as extensive as Jonathan described, the total could exceed $200 million. Jonathan's face crumbles as the full scope of his situation becomes clear. Wait, we can make a deal. I'll cooperate fully, provide information about my associates, return all the stolen money. Mr. Blackstone, Agent Martinez says calmly, you spent the last hour explaining how you've been manipulating federal investigators and fabricating evidence. Why would we believe anything you say now? As they prepare to lead Jonathan away, Agent Chen turns to me. Ms. Harrison, you'll need to come with us to provide a formal statement, but I want you to know that based on today's recording and our investigation, all charges against you will be dropped immediately. What about the FBI investigation that was opened yesterday? That investigation was based on false information provided by Mr. Blackstone. It's being closed as we speak, and a statement will be released, clearing your name completely. Dr. Williams approaches as the FBI escorts Jonathan from the building. Letitia, are you all right? I think so. Dr. Williams, how long have you been working with the FBI? 3 months. When Marcus and I first discovered evidence of fraud, we contacted Agent Chen immediately. She's been building a federal case while we gathered evidence from inside the company. Marcus joins us, looking both relieved and exhausted. Letitia, there's something else you should know. Velocity Corp's head of acquisitions, Professor Bradley, has been cooperating with the FBI investigation for weeks. Professor Bradley knew about the fraud. He suspected it from the beginning. When he contacted me about irregularities in our financial projections, I had to tell him about our investigation. He's been working with federal agents to ensure that any confession would be admissible in court. Agent Chen overhears and approaches us. Ms. Harrison, Professor Bradley specifically requested that we protect you throughout this investigation. He spoke very highly of your integrity and wanted to ensure that you wouldn't be harmed by Mr. Blackstone's retaliation. As we walk through the building toward the exit, I see Meridian employees gathered in small groups, whispering and looking confused. Some recognize me and wave sympathetically, probably assuming I'm being arrested along with Jonathan. In the lobby, Agent Chen addresses the entire staff. Meridian Technologies employees, I'm Agent Sarah Chen with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Your CEO, Jonathan Blackstone, has been arrested for financial fraud and conspiracy. Your CFO, Letitia Harrison, has been cleared of all charges and was actually instrumental in exposing Mr. Blackstone's crimes. A murmur runs through the crowd. Several people applaud while others look shocked. The company's operations will continue normally while we complete our investigation. Your jobs are secure, and your paychecks will not be affected. The board of directors will be appointing an interim CEO within 24 hours. Outside the building, news crews have already arrived. Reporters with cameras and microphones push forward as we exit. Ms. Harrison, can you comment on your role in exposing the fraud? Ms. Harrison, how did you discover Mr. Blackstone's criminal activities? Dr. Williams steps protectively in front of me. Ms. Harrison will not be making statements at this time. All questions should be directed to the FBI's Public Information Office. As we reach the parking lot, I see Jonathan being placed in the back of an FBI vehicle. Through the window, he's still talking rapidly, probably trying to negotiate some kind of plea deal. Agent Chen approaches one final time. Ms. Harrison, I want to thank you personally for your courage in exposing this fraud. Your actions have prevented Velocity Corp from losing $900 million and saved hundreds of Meridian employees from losing their jobs. What happens now? Now we complete our investigation, recover the stolen money, and make sure that Mr. Blackstone and his associates spend appropriate time in federal prison. Based on the evidence we have, he's looking at 20 to 25 years. Dr. Williams puts her arm around my shoulders. And now you get your life back, my dear. Your reputation restored, your name cleared, and the satisfaction of knowing you did the right thing. As the FBI vehicles drive away with Jonathan Blackstone, I realize something important has changed. This morning, I came here as a desperate woman trying to clear her name. I'm leaving as someone who helped expose a massive criminal enterprise and saved hundreds of innocent people from financial devastation. But the best part isn't the personal vindication. It's knowing that Jonathan Blackstone's reign of terror is finally over, and he'll never again have the power to destroy other people's lives for his own profit. The truth didn't just set me free. It delivered justice for everyone he'd ever hurt. 3 days after Jonathan's arrest, I sit in Meridian's boardroom as the newly appointed interim CEO, appointed unanimously by the board of directors. The same glass-walled room where Jonathan humiliated me now serves as command central for rebuilding the company he nearly destroyed. Dr. Williams sits at my right hand as chairman of the board, while Marcus Wright takes notes as our new chief legal officer. The irony isn't lost on me that the 3 people Jonathan tried to silence are now running the company. The first order of business, I announced to the assembled staff, is complete financial transparency. Every transaction, every account, every business relationship will be independently audited and verified. Sarah Chen, my former assistant who proved her loyalty during the crisis, nods from her new position as Director of Operations. What about employee concerns? A lot of people are worried about job security. Based on our analysis with Velocity Corp, the acquisition will proceed under new terms that protect every employee position. Professor Bradley has restructured the deal to account for Jonathan's fraudulent revenue inflation, but the core business remains sound. Over the past 72 hours, we've discovered that Meridian's legitimate revenue is actually $32 million annually, not the $47 million Jonathan claimed. Still impressive for a 3-year-old company, just not artificially inflated. Marcus Wright pulls up financial projections on his laptop. Velocity Corp is still interested in acquiring us, but at a more realistic valuation. Instead of $900 million, they're offering $550 million, which accurately reflects our actual performance. What about the employees who knew about Jonathan's behavior but stayed silent? It's a difficult question. During the FBI investigation, several staff members admitted they suspected financial irregularities, but were afraid to speak up. Others knew about Jonathan's inappropriate treatment of female employees, but didn't report it. We're implementing a comprehensive ethics program, I explain. Mandatory training on recognizing and reporting fraud, anonymous whistleblower protections, and regular third-party audits. Our goal is creating a culture where people feel safe doing the right thing. Amanda Foster, who returned to Meridian yesterday as our new Director of Human Resources, speaks up from the back of the room. We've also established a victim support fund for anyone who suffered retaliation under Jonathan's leadership, whether it was being passed over for promotions, being excluded from projects, or facing harassment. The meeting continues for 2 hours, covering everything from media relations to customer communications. It's exhausting but necessary work. Jonathan didn't just steal money. He poisoned the company culture with fear and manipulation. After the meeting, Dr. Williams and I walked to my new office, the same corner space that Jonathan occupied just days ago. I've already redecorated, completely replacing his ostentatious mahogany furniture with a simple desk and conference table. "How are you holding up, dear?" Dr. Williams asks, settling into one of my new chairs. "Honestly, it's overwhelming. 3 days ago, I thought my career was over. Now I'm running a $50 million company and trying to undo years of systematic corruption." "You're exactly where you belong. I've seen a lot of business leaders in my career, and very few have your combination of technical skill and ethical courage." My phone buzzes with a call from Agent Chen. I answer on speaker so Dr. Williams can hear. "Letitia, I have some significant updates on the investigation. Are you somewhere private?" "I'm with Dr. Williams. You can speak freely." "Good. First, the good news. We've recovered $31 million of the $47 million Jonathan stole from Meridian. Most of it was sitting in accounts he couldn't access quickly. The rest was spent on luxury items we're in the process of seizing." "What about the other companies in his network?" "That's where it gets interesting. Based on Jonathan's records, we've identified 6 other companies that were defrauded using similar schemes. The total theft is approximately $190 million across all victims." Dr. Williams leans forward. "How many people were affected?" "Over 2,000 employees across 7 companies. Some lost their jobs when the companies collapsed after being defrauded. Others are working for firms that don't know they're technically insolvent because of the theft. I feel sick thinking about all the innocent people whose lives Jonathan destroyed for money. Is there any way to help them?" "Actually, yes. The Justice Department is coordinating with several federal agencies to create a victim compensation fund. Money recovered from Jonathan and his associates will be distributed to affected employees and investors." "How long will the legal proceedings take?" "Jonathan's attorney is pushing for a plea agreement. With the evidence we have, including his recorded confession, he's looking at 25 years in federal prison. He knows he can't win at trial, so he's trying to negotiate a shorter sentence in exchange for full cooperation." After Agent Chen hangs up, Dr. Williams and I sit quietly for a moment, processing the scope of Jonathan's crimes. "There's something I need to tell you," Dr. Williams says finally. "Something we discovered during the investigation that we haven't made public yet." "What kind of something?" She pulls out a thick folder and places it on my desk. Jonathan wasn't just stealing money and inflating revenue. He was also planning to sell employee personal data to foreign corporations. My blood freezes. "What kind of personal data?" "Everything. Social security numbers, health insurance records, financial information, family details. Over 800 current and former Meridian employees, plus data from the other companies in his network." I stare at the folder, afraid to open it. "Sell it to whom?" According to his communications, several entities with connections to organized crime and foreign intelligence services. The Velocity Core acquisition would have provided the perfect cover for this operation. My God, he wasn't just stealing money, he was planning to destroy people's entire lives. The FBI believes this was his long-term exit strategy. Steal enough corporate funds to live comfortably, then sell employee data for additional millions while disappearing overseas. I open the folder and scan the first few pages. Lists of employee names, social security numbers, bank account information, even medical records from our company health plan. Thousands of pieces of personal information that could have been used for identity theft, blackmail, or worse. How close was he to completing the sale? Based on his email communications, the transfer was scheduled for next week, the day after the Velocity Core acquisition was supposed to close. The implications hit me like a physical blow. If our investigation had taken a few more days, if Jonathan's ego hadn't led him to confess if any part of our plan had failed, hundreds of people would have had their identities stolen and their lives potentially ruined. Dr. Williams, this changes everything. We're not just talking about corporate fraud anymore. This was potentially a national security issue, which is why the FBI has elevated the case to their counterintelligence division. Jonathan Blackstone wasn't just a greedy CEO. He was essentially operating as a criminal enterprise with international connections. As the full scope of Jonathan's planned crimes becomes clear, I realize something profound. Our investigation didn't just save Meridian Technologies or protect Velocity Core from financial loss. We potentially prevented a massive breach of personal information that could have affected thousands of innocent Americans. My phone buzzes with a text message from an unknown number. "Congratulations on stopping a monster. You saved more lives than you'll ever know." A grateful FBI agent. Looking out the window at downtown Denver, I think about all the people walking the streets below, employees going to work, families living their lives completely unaware of how close they came to having their personal information sold to criminals. Sometimes doing the right thing feels like a burden. Today it feels like the most important thing I've ever done. But there's one more revelation coming that will make this story even more significant than any of us imagined. 6 months later, I stand at the podium in Harvard Business School's largest auditorium, looking out at 300 MBA students who remind me of myself 3 years ago. Eager, ambitious, convinced that success is just a matter of working hard and playing by the rules. Today's lecture is titled, Ethical Leadership in Crisis, a Case Study in Corporate Whistleblowing. It's become one of the most popular seminars at Harvard, with students often waiting months for a spot. How many of you have heard of the Blackstone case, I ask? Nearly every hand goes up. Jonathan's arrest and conviction became a landmark case in business schools across the country, taught as an example of how unchecked greed can destroy entire organizations. For those who haven't followed the story, here's what happened. Jonathan Blackstone, CEO of Meridian Technologies, systematically defrauded his own company for 3 years. He stole $47 million inflated revenue by 30% and planned to sell employee personal data to criminal organizations. When his CFO discovered the fraud, he tried to frame her for his crimes. I clicked to the next slide showing newspaper headlines from the day of Jonathan's arrest. That CFO was me. A murmur runs through the audience. Most students know I was involved in exposing corporate fraud, but few realize I was the primary target of the criminals' retaliation. Today, I want to talk about what that experience taught me about leadership ethics and the courage required to do what's right when everything is against you. For the next hour, I walk through the entire story. Jonathan's manipulation, the underground investigation, the terrifying moment when I realized he'd been watching us, and the final confrontation that led to his arrest. But I also talk about the aftermath, the slow process of rebuilding Meridian's culture, the satisfaction of seeing stolen money returned to victims, the pride in knowing that our actions protected thousands of innocent people from identity theft. 6 months ago, Jonathan Blackstone was sentenced to 23 years in federal prison. I continue. He was ordered to pay $147 million in restitution to victims across 7 companies. His criminal network, which affected over 2,000 employees, has been completely dismantled. I advance to a slide showing Meridian's current performance metrics. Today, Meridian Technologies is profitable, ethical, and growing. We completed our acquisition by Velocity Core under terms that protected every employee job. Our new corporate culture emphasizes transparency, accountability, and protection for anyone who reports wrongdoing. A student raises her hand. Ms. Harrison, what would you say to someone who discovers fraud but is afraid to report it because of potential retaliation? It's the question I get most often and the most important one. I understand that fear completely. When I first discovered Jonathan's crimes, I was terrified of what he might do to destroy my career. But I learned something crucial: staying silent doesn't protect you from retaliation. It just gives criminals more time to cover their tracks and hurt more people. I share the story of Amanda Foster, who suffered harassment for months before finally finding the courage to speak up, and Marcus Wright, who risked his career to gather evidence, and Dr. Williams, who used her reputation to protect whistleblowers. The most important lesson from this experience is that ethical behavior creates ethical communities. When one person has the courage to speak truth, it gives others permission to do the same. Evil thrives in isolation, but it can't survive transparency. After the lecture, I drive to downtown Denver for the monthly board meeting of the Harrison Foundation for Corporate Ethics, the nonprofit organization I established with my speaking fees and book royalties. Our conference room overlooks the building where Meridian used to be headquartered. Velocity Core moved our operations to a larger facility, and the old space now houses a small tech incubator that helps ethical entrepreneurs start new companies. Dr. Williams chairs our foundation board, while Marcus Wright serves as our legal counsel. Amanda Foster runs our victim support programs, helping people who've suffered retaliation for reporting corporate wrongdoing. Our scholarship program has grown significantly, Amanda reports. We're now providing full tuition support for 20 business students annually, all committed to ethical leadership in their future careers. What about our legislative advocacy work, I ask. Marcus pulls out his notes. We've helped draft whistleblower protection bills in 6 states. the Federal Corporate Accountability Act, which strengthens penalties for executives who retaliate against employees reporting fraud, should pass Congress next month. Dr. Williams smiles proudly. Letitia, when you called me 3 years ago asking about a job recommendation, I never imagined it would lead to this. You've created a movement. After the meeting, I drive home to my new house in the foothills west of Denver. It's modest compared to what I could afford now, but it has something more valuable than luxury peace. My phone rings as I'm preparing dinner. The caller ID shows Professor Bradley from Velocity Corps. Letitia, I wanted to give you a heads up about something. The Justice Department is announcing tomorrow that the Blackstone investigation has expanded internationally. Turns out his network had connections to corporate fraud schemes in 12 countries. How many total victims? Over 10,000 employees worldwide. The financial theft exceeds $500 million. Your actions in exposing the scheme have led to the largest corporate fraud bust in federal history. After he hangs up, I stand in my kitchen looking out at the mountains, thinking about all the lives that were saved by our decision to speak up. Thousands of people who still have their jobs, their savings, their identities intact, because we found the courage to challenge a powerful criminal. My phone buzzes with a text from Sarah Chen, now CEO of her own consulting firm, saw the news about the international expansion. Proud to have worked with someone who changed the world. That evening, I sit on my deck watching the sunset paint the Rocky Mountains in shades of gold and purple. Tomorrow, I'll give another speech about ethical leadership. Next week, I'll testify before Congress about strengthening whistleblower protections. Next month, I'll speak at a conference for fraud investigators in Europe. But tonight, I just want to reflect on the journey that brought me here. 3 years ago, I was a naive MBA graduate who thought success meant impressing powerful people and climbing corporate ladders. I measured achievement by salary increases and job titles, convinced that playing by the rules would automatically lead to prosperity and recognition. Jonathan Blackstone taught me that the rules don't protect you if the people in power are willing to break them. But Dr. Williams, Marcus Wright, Amanda Foster, and countless others taught me something more important. Courage is contagious integrity, creates community, and one person's willingness to stand up for what's right can inspire an entire movement. The most profound lesson from this experience isn't about corporate fraud or whistleblower protection. It's about the power of individual choice in moments of moral crisis. Every day in businesses across America, people discover wrongdoing and face the same choice I faced: stay silent and hope someone else will act, or find the courage to speak up despite the personal cost. The easy choice is silence. The profitable choice is often complicity. But the right choice, the choice that creates lasting positive change, is truth. Jonathan Blackstone is serving 23 years in federal prison, but his greatest punishment isn't the prison sentence. It's knowing that his crimes led directly to the creation of systems that prevent future criminals from following his example. His legacy isn't the millions he stole, but the billions in fraud that won't happen because we stopped him. Today, when business students study the Blackstone case, they don't just learn about financial fraud techniques or investigative procedures. They learn that ordinary people have extraordinary power when they choose courage over comfort, truth over convenience, and justice over personal safety. That's the lesson I want to leave with you. In your career, you will face moments when doing the right thing requires personal sacrifice, when speaking up means risking retaliation, when standing for your principles means standing alone. In those moments, remember that your choice doesn't just affect you. It affects everyone whose life intersects with yours, everyone who works for the organizations you influence, everyone who depends on the integrity of the systems you help maintain. The question isn't whether you have the power to make a difference. The question is whether you'll choose to use that power when it matters most. What moment in your career has required the most courage to do what's right? Have you ever had to choose between personal safety and speaking up for others? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Your experiences might inspire someone else who's facing a similar choice. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button, subscribe for more content about ethical leadership, and share this video with anyone who might benefit from hearing about the power of individual courage in creating systemic change. Thank you for joining me today, and remember, the courage to do right doesn't just change your own life, it changes the world for everyone who comes after you. Until next time, keep choosing courage.